bloodlines there is that descendant. I mean, which is, you know, it's nice when archaeology and history and some current event come together. We've got loads of questions, and first is, somebody commented on, we found the child, but we couldn't find out what sex the child was. Why is that difficult? What happens, and at what age can you find it?
Yes, it's a good question. With a child, you can't use the normal sex indicators from the skeleton. So you've got all children have got narrow little pelvises and gracile little bones, and so they look like a combination of a man's small pelvis and a woman's gracile bones. You get the pelvis gets bigger throughout the teenage years, so that it's easier to spot a girl as she goes through her teenage years. But Margaret Cox once said to me, she said, I shouldn't say this to you because you'll get funny looks, because I get funny looks. She said, but do you ever look at young men on trains? And I said, no, I don't. And she said, well, if you look at them, you'll see that they don't develop those brow ridges and those big noses until they're, you know, well into their 20s. And you just look at some young men on trains. There's lots of them there. And I said, no, I'm not going to look at young men on trains, Margaret. But of course I do. I've started looking. I mean, ever since then, you can't stop looking at young men. And she's right. Those brow ridges do develop throughout life. So men are much harder to spot until they get older. The only way you can really get back to sensible discussion, the only way you can really tell is through a DNA analysis, and I think you'd have to do a whole genome. So it's not something I've ever heard of anyone doing, because it's so expensive. Why would you bother? Because children are a different thing. They're not man and they're not woman. They're